Opinions and stories around the game we love, told by your favorite storytellers. Stay up to date with all things cricket. Subscribe to Cricbuzz's YouTube channel and press that bell icon now. There hasn't been a single dull day in round one of this T20 World Cup so far, and this day wasn't either. Ireland came into their elements. Curtis Campher just shone an how, and then West Indies roared back just when it mattered. Let's recap it all in our match story. So then game number one on day 4 of round 1, Ireland taking on Scotland. Scotland coming off a win, needing just one more win to almost ensure a place in the Super 12s. Ireland in desperate need of a win in this game to stay alive in that race. Scotland won the toss, opted to bat first, and while the opening partnership couldn't really last long, once he was gone in the second over, Michael Jones and Matthew Cross stitched together a very nice partnership, a 50-odd partnership, which was broken by the hero of the day, Curtis Campher, the very first ball of his very first spell, showing ominous signs that this was going to be a very special day for Campher. But the partnerships weren't over. Berrington and Jones then combined forces to put together 77 runs of just 48 balls. And guess who broke this partnership as well? It was Curtis Campher of the first ball of his second spell. But Jones was brilliant for Scotland. He was batting really well, piercing the gaps, making sure that he was using the ground dimensions to his advantage, converting those ones into twos, occasionally those twos into threes as well. But towards the end, Scotland kind of lost steam in their innings, and 176 on the board at the end of 20 overs might not seem like they did, but the last 2 overs only yielded 15 runs and got 2 wickets for Ireland. So Scotland might go back and rue the fact that they could have added a few more runs towards the end. But it didn't seem like that, at least at the start of Ireland's batting effort, because they were 60-odd for 4 when Dockrell came in to bat with Curtis Campher, and then the two stitched together one of the most iconic partnerships in Irish cricket history, and especially Curtis Campher, who paced this chase to perfection. He was in his elements and how, and he's kind of made this round 1 of T20 World Cups his favorite round to play in because he was a hero for Ireland. But for a major part of that chase, it did seem like Ireland were behind the 8th ball. Only Curtis Campher knew that he was pacing this one to perfection. They needed 52 of the last 5 overs, and eventually Ireland would end up winning the game with 1 over to spare. Of course, there were contributions from the Scottish bowlers as well, who didn't really stick to their plans, tried a few too many things towards the end, but don't take anything away from Curtis Campher, who scored his first T20I half-century in this game, missed out on a century, but brought home victory and glory in the most emphatic of fashions. Ireland staying alive in this race to the Super 12s, Scotland going down in a high-scoring thriller. For the second game of the day, West Indies were taking on Zimbabwe, and West Indies were fair and square at the start of this game in a do-or-die territory. If they had to remain in the race for those Super 12s, they had to win this one against Zimbabwe. They won the toss and opted to bat first and were off to a brisk start before Kyle Myers was removed. But Evan Lewis and Johnson Charles scored a 49-run partnership between the two of them before that one man with the golden arm for Zimbabwe, Sikandar Raza, broke this partnership. But the real struggle for the West Indies started in around the 13th over. They lost 2 wickets in the 13th over, and then in the 14th, Sikandar Raza came back again to pick 2 more wickets, and suddenly the West Indies innings that had had a great start started seeming in a disarray. If only for Akeal Hussain and Robman Powell, who took them to a respectable 153 for 7. But at the halfway mark, Zimbabwe perhaps believed that they could gun this down with more dew, with the track getting better to bat on. And it did seem like that, especially in the first 2 overs of Zimbabwe's innings. They'd gunned down 29 runs in those first 2 overs. But perhaps Captain Pooran also missed the trick. He started the new ball with Kyle Myers and then Akeal Hussain. But once he brought about his pacers, especially Alzarri Joseph, who was going to star in this game, and how things started changing, because that raw pace from Alzarri Joseph didn't really find a lot of takers in terms of run making from the Zimbabwean batters. At the end of the power play, Zimbabwe still had a great score, 55 runs, just that they'd lost 3 wickets. Now this head start meant that Zimbabwe could really take some time in the middle without affecting that required run rate by a lot. But all rested on the shoulders of Sikandar Raza, who couldn't do it this time around. The other batters tried, including till the end. Luke Jongwe seemed like till the time he was out there, Zimbabwe were in the game, but it wasn't to be. It was a great bowling performance. Obed McCoy, Jason Holder, Alzarri Joseph, of course, with his the first four in this T20 World Cup. Akil Hussain bowling some really economical spells. This was all in all a day that West Indies would have hoped for in a do-or-die territory. Them beating Zimbabwe by 31 runs, remaining alive in this group where now every team has won at least one game, 2 points each for every team. This is going to be very tricky. And this 31-run win for the West Indies might just come in handy in terms of that net run rate as well. That wraps up a blockbuster day in round one of the T20 World Cup. Ireland with that brilliant win, courtesy a spectacular knock from Curtis Campher, and then West Indies roaring back like only two-time T20 World Cup champions can. But still a lot remains in this round one of the T20 World Cup. For every update around which, you must stay tuned to Cricbuzz.